Welcome back to the studio. My name is Jaco, and as per usual behind the camera, doing all the camera work and all the editing, of course, is Damia. We do a tutorial style video. I suppose it's a tutorial style, Damia. We're not telling people what to do. You get to see a snippet in what we do in our workshop, and with that, hopefully you pick something out of that and it helps you in some possible way. We try and spread the love. And this week's video, we made a set of hoop earrings in 9-karat gold, customer gold. They like the idea of a simple sleeper sort of setup, slightly textured with some shaping that we've done on the surface. Obviously, that's something I want to do. When it comes down to mechanisms, which is an important part of jewelry making, this is a sort of step into the world of mechanisms that anybody can try. Have a look at what we've done and how I've constructed these little earrings. They are just fabulous. I loved making them and they came out really beautiful. I'm using one of these small crucibles. I'm preparing the ingot by heating it up, and then I'm using a little bit of oil and some paper. One continuous cast, you've got your little bar. I need it to be as clean as possible, but I want any of that contamination from the flux to be transferred onto my rolling mill, because I love my rolling mill. It's one of the first tools I've ever bought when I started making jewelry with my friends for many years. Now I want to make 2mm thick wires. 2mm thick wires are quite sturdy wires, especially with 9-karat. So I'm going to roll this piece down through my roller by turning it 90 degrees, going through, coming back 90 degrees, through, back. This whole process up until the point where I'm just fractionally over 2mm in square. Technically, if I draw this down, it should give me an exact 2mm. I'm continuously softening up this metal. I'm relaxing it. We're not fighting each other. We're working together with the material. I need to draw the wire from a square shape and force it down to a round shape. With the thicker wires, typically you have a draw bench which does the job for you. I don't have a draw bench. I've never had a draw bench. I have to improvise on how to get a thickish kind of wire, especially like I say with 9-karat, which is quite resistant, quite hard. The first couple of holes are fine. When it starts getting lower, it starts getting a little tricky. It's starting to give you more contact on the hole, and it's going to start giving you more resistance. So I'm annealing the wire like I said. I'm adding oil to the back of the wire where I grab it behind the plate to make sure it comes through, and I'm mounting that plate in the most secure thing that I have in the workshop, which in this case is my rolling mill. Put the power into it and just run it. So we've got our round wire. It's 2mm thick, and again I'm giving it a bit of a anneal. Why? Because we put tension on it, so we're negotiating with the metal the whole time. From this point onwards, I need to wrap it around something. Now the size that I've got that I need the outside diameters of these wires to be actually corresponds very well with one of my ball punches. I need 2 earrings, one set of earrings essentially, but I'm going to be making 5 rings. And the reason behind that is because I'm going to need, well, watch a little further on and I'll explain to you exactly why I made 5. I'm going to put them into a punch, a cone punch in this case, only because I found the diameter that they fit into. I'm using the valve that I've got and I'm hammering them in to compress those wires and also at the same time to give them uniformity. So I've got these rounded pieces right here. I want to use not half of the earring, I want to use a little bit more than half. So it needs to come past the point because I want to introduce a hinge here. So I'm trying to achieve the final shape. I have to cut more off so that I can take this extra section, form it into a hinge, and this extra section, cut the section in so that when I bring those parts together, that extra little bit cancels itself out. The extra little solid parts, I'm going to now mark that off and then file the top, leave the center and file the bottom to create this little bar. That little bar is going to go inside and create the hinge area onto the next side. This is fairly simple stuff, but this is a great way to get into hinge mechanisms, and it's simple to do with regards to starting off and being curious about this kind of stuff. Once I've completed the first one, it already gives me an indication of how long the second one needs to be. Mark a little line and then cut the inside out. I need to do the negative of what I've just done over here for those two parts to fit together. I start off with a saw blade and cut straight down the middle up until the points where I have marked as far as I want to go in, and then I use a parallel phrase and I run it slowly from the top to the bottom. The saw blade means that it has some sort of a track to follow, but it will still try and run to the one side. So I do the cut from one side and then turn it around, do it from the other side to keep balance. Now I'm doing this cautiously. I'm not starting with the BB phrase or the parallel phrase, which is the exact same size, because if I make a mistake then I can't fix it. So I'm starting small and then enlarging it until those two parts come together. My hinge is just about done. Once I've got the two parts that fit together, I'm bringing the circle back together and I'm soldering it. This is going to help me because I can put it back into that very same punching block to the same hole and make sure that I'm still on par, because I'm essentially working with two different parts that I'm bringing together. Now they might be slightly out of shape, but it's going to squeeze itself together and it's going to form straight back into the circle that I had before I started. I'm now going to make the hole for the hinge, the part that holds the two parts together, the wire that runs through, to make sure that those two parts, when they open up, has a pivot point. I'm drilling from this side, then I turn it around and I draw from the other side, and that way they meet up and I get the straightest kind of line that I possibly can for it. Then I countersink the holes ever so slightly. And I take these little tapered watch pins. They slide in quite nicely, and as they taper, they lock. And I can remove that, test things, put them back in until I get ready to put the actual gold wire in. A hinge, as you see it, won't work if you've done it right, because the top parts of either side is going to be catching and preventing your hinge from opening. Ever so slightly the one side, and ever so slightly the other side need to be filed or rounded. Once you've rounded them, it should allow the parts to move past each other and open up. So I've prepared the hole. I know that the hinge will work. I now need to go to the other side. Now our ear has a certain space and all of our ears are different. I typically go for 6 to 8 millimeters for something like this, to make sure that we've got enough space when that earring closes, that there's a bit of space and it doesn't pinch the ear. I mark from the point where I soldered it, 4 millimeters this direction, 4 millimeters that direction, and I cut straight lines or I cut it through from there onwards. It's time to create the pin wire. I find that a 0.9 millimeter is a nice standard, which is what I've gone with. I've drawn the wire down. I need the wire to be stronger than usual because my wire is actually the clasp mechanism. It's going to become the clip part of the earring. It needs to have strength. It can't be soft, it can't be annealed. I need to make sure that it's hard. So I'm pulling it through the draw plate to the size I want. And then I'm marking into the wall, because these are solid earrings. So I'm drilling into the actual earrings wall and I'm mounting this wire into the hole and then soldering it. If you solder something on the flat surface like that, that's the area that's soldered. If you're going into the metal itself, you have that surface plus the side surfaces. So it gives us more strength on the earring as well. There's something I'm doing to the wire as well. I'm now taking the wire and I'm squashing it flat. First of all, I've just soldered it, so it's softened, it's annealed. I want to harden it. So I'm pushing the wire flat with my pliers to tense it up. And second of all, to give it more strength. There'll be less movement, which is exactly what I'm looking for, because I want sustainability on that clip, up and down like this if you have a flat surface than what you do a round surface. So I'm giving it that little bit of extra love to make sure that the mechanism stays in place. I can now bring the two parts together and I can see how far from that original circle I am. It should be a bit bigger. I'm cutting it off a little bit bigger because part of this pin wire from the ear needs to go inside the actual earring itself to create this clip mechanism. And if I bring them together, this pin is probably going to stand like that. So I'm bending this down because we're working with a pin that needs to meet up on its opposite side. I'm now looking where it hits the other side and I'm making another hole there. Now the hole I'm making that side is just ever so slightly bigger than the actual pin wire itself. Reason being, I wanted to access that wire without any kind of issues. I'm going to go inside the hole with a lens phrase or a diamond shaped phrase without disturbing the actual diameter which I've just made inside, and then use that lens phrase to cut a groove in the inside of the wire itself. Now you can go all the way around depending if your wire is going to click on the top or the bottom. Mine's going to go to the bottom. I've focused more on the bottom area over here and made sure that the hole is deep enough so that when that earring closes up, that wire comfortably moves in. And what I need to do is create tension. So I'm bending this wire down so that I have tension. So when it hits this hole on the other side, that it doesn't actually enter, it has a point where it stops. Why am I doing this? Because I want the downward motion to hold the set of earrings together. Take the front part of that ear pin and give it a bit of a rounding like this, so that when it meets up to this part over here, it can slide over the edge and enter into the hole. And once you've closed it up and you know this is the size of the earring that you're looking for, all you need to do is make a little mark with a pencil, open it up, and just this side of the pencil mark, put a small cut through on the wire at the bottom. So here's what's happening. It comes, it closes, it meets the other side, it climbs over because of that rounding that you've created on the pin wire, and as it climbs over, it finds the cut you just created and it clicks down because its motion is downwards. We're almost there. We can now take the watch pin out and bring in a piece of 9 carat, in this case 9 carat wire, which is appropriate, and I like them to be quite tight. And then I hammer those parts together. We flatten them up on top of the surface. Very gentle exercise. It doesn't take much, but what will happen is that wire will spread out into that hole and lock this side as well as the other side. Clip mechanism comes together, it works, the hinge works perfectly, we've got the right diameter. You're almost finished making your first set of Huggy earrings, but we're not done yet because the customer wanted a texture. I'm using a small rubber wheel and I'm carving away with the rubber wheel directions and areas from the one end to the other end to try and create this hammered finish almost on it. It gives the earrings a completely unique look, and it gives it a real sort of texture. Now some of the other pieces I've done for this very same customer are very much on the same line. So we're making something that comes from the same family. The rings are going to match with the earrings, and this particular type of style, I've done this on rings as well, works very well. You do sacrifice a little bit of the dust, but because it's such small earrings and I know it's going to remain in the workshop, I'm going to be able to find most of those things when I send my sweep in. These are the earrings. Let me know what you think of them. I hope that the mechanism, the explanation of the mechanism made sense to you, and I hope to see you next week again. Thank you very much for watching these videos. We're getting a lot of people asking a lot of questions on Instagram as well under Jaco the Jeweler, and we are trying our best to get to that as soon as possible. Please stay tuned, like, subscribe, the bell icon will let you know when those things are coming up. We're looking forward to seeing you again. Stay creative. Till next week.